President Trump, when we sat down and talked to him over roughly 10 minutes, was totally and completely unaware of the cease and desist that had occurred onto the LCRC.
Woo! Yes! 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 Oh my goodness.
President Trump was actively and very engaged and interested to hear about our merch and how are they selling. He wanted to know how many pieces they sold. They were selling well. At no time did President Trump ask for the merch to be removed.
One brave Virginia America First patriot stood up to the RINOs and won. Loudoun County GOP Chairman Scott Pio was hit with a cease and desist letter from an attorney representing the Trump campaign. It demanded that Pio stop using Trump's likeness on merchandise and accused him of fundraising on the attempt of Trump's life. It was also bizarrely personal. It read, quote, immediately cease and desist from all unauthorized use of President Trump's name and likeness, or we will pursue all claims against you. It will hurt. It reads like a letter, honestly, by a Democrat threatening a Republican. Now, it's unclear exactly who was behind this bright idea, but we all know Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita, the Trump campaign's top advisors, have little love for the grassroots. The incident made headlines, humiliating a solid Republican in Pio and giving ammunition to RINOs like John Whitbeck, the former chairman of the Virginia GOP. Trump saw this for what it is, needless distraction and division ahead of the most important election in modern memory. So he personally stepped in to smooth things over. You know, it was a remarkable act that highlighted Trump at his best, a unifier who emphasizes with the importance of the common cause. Trump gets that more than most of us because his fate is intertwined with the fate of the country. We need unity now more than ever. And joining us now is the Mama Grizzly of Mama Grizzly, Stacey Langton, also a resident of Virginia, very active in Virginia politics. Look, I want to make sure people really understand what happened in Loudoun County, because it's happening in a lot of places, right? It's a problem that remains in the Trump campaign and the Republican National Committee, is that there are RINOs, those who are really not America first, and they try to take out anyone who is truly America first, even often at the local level. So just explain in a little more detail what happened in Virginia.
Yeah, so this is the same type of battle I've been dealing with since the summer of 2022 in the Fairfax GOP. It's the establishment RINO wing versus the MAGA, America First, Trump supporter wing of the party. And you have this conflict where, you know, the establishment generally is in control of the county unit committees, and they really don't like it if somebody who's not an insider, an establishment person, gets in charge. And that's what happened out in Loudoun, and it was lovely. I really like Scott Pio. He's a wonderful chairman for the committee, and it's, you know, I think it's the second largest committee in the state of Virginia behind Fairfax County, and he has done great things. He's raised a lot of money. He's gotten a lot more volunteers and engagement, but what he did was he kind of, stopped the grift of the money and the establishment people that were making a lot of money doing what they do. And he, is not well liked by that segment of the committee, whereas everyone else loves him and supports him. All the MAGA people support him. He has the vast majority of the committee supports him. So this was a coup. They went to the Trump campaign apparatus and they complained that he was selling the merchandise of the famous iconic photo, and I'm wearing the shirt, as you can see, on the website for the Loudoun County Republicans Committee. Well, what would be wrong with that? Because, there's 9,000, a million sellers on Amazon doing the exact same thing. And so why would they complain about that? Well, they did that as a ruse to find a way to oust him as the committee chair.
Who did they complain to? Did they complain directly to Chris LaCivita?
I don't think they started there. It's my understanding that they first took it to our local, Virginia director, who is a gentleman by the name of Pat Truman. And I think that he's probably the one who kind of took it up the chain in the Trump campaign. And the problem with this whole story at its core is the optics of it. Okay. If you read the letter, the cease and desist letter that David Warrington of the Dillon Law Group sent on behalf of the Trump campaign to the Loudoun GOP chairman, Scott Pio, it's unbelievably vicious. And it reads like a mafia threat. And the problem with that is that, you know, Donald Trump as president, he's a tough guy. Donald Trump is a fighter. Donald Trump is a brawler. But you know what Donald Trump is not? He's not a thug. And the letter reads like it was written by a thug. And it turns out, as I suspected when I first heard about this conflict about a week or so ago, my first thought was, you know, I don't think Donald Trump knows about this letter. I don't think Donald Trump would approve of this type and tone of letter being written to one of his largest Republican committee chairs.
And it apparently did come on to Donald Trump's radar because he was the one who personally resolved it, correct? Tell us about how that worked out.
Right. So that's the amazing thing about it. Last night at the meeting, nobody knew what Scott Pio was going to say. Nobody knew how Scott Pio was going to resolve this terrible situation because, you know, the optics on this are terrible. It looks bad. Whoever, David Warrington, Pat Truman, apparently another gentleman named John Whitbeck was also involved. And I know John Whitbeck, unfortunately, because he's the lawyer of Harry Jackson, the school board candidate who sued me for $3 million. And John Whitbeck is the former party chairman of the Republican Party in Virginia from 2015 to 2018. So all of these people, if they got together and thought, hey, you know what, here's a great idea. Here's how we're going to oust Scott Pio. It's a terrible idea because the optics look horrendous. And so when Scott came to the podium, what he said in his speech, which was beautiful, is he said, President Trump came here on Sunday and I had a private conversation with him yesterday afternoon for 10 minutes. And he solved the problem. And he said, I have permission to use the image to sell merchandise on behalf of the Loudoun GOP.
That's fantastic. And what I believe when I discussed this with you a little bit earlier, Donald Trump was even interested in the business of it, right? He's kind of like, how much money have you made all this? How's it going? How's sales going? Because, I mean, he is, at the end of the day, a businessman.
That's right. He's a businessman. And that was one of the funniest moments of Scott's speech was when he said, you know, President Trump asked me, how are my sales? How many mugs have you sold? How many t-shirts? You know, that's the President Trump that we all know and love. And it was just, I think, masterfully played by Scott Pio as the chairman of the party, that he did away with the, you know, the RINOs who were trying to unseat him by going straight to the source. Because Donald Trump is the boss. He is the boss of the Republican Party. And the beautiful thing about what I witnessed last night is I used to love to watch The Apprentice back in the day, right? Who didn't love watching Donald Trump on The Apprentice? Because he could have it all sorted out, you know, these interpersonal skirmishes and who was fighting with who and who wasn't doing their job. And he would have it all figured out in 10 minutes and say, you're fired. And that's exactly what Scott Pio said he did. He said, I spoke to President Trump for 10 minutes and he saw through the lies that had been told about Scott Pio and he saw the truth. And he said, yeah, this is all a misunderstanding and there should be no issue here. And yes, you have my blessing to sell the merchandise. And so Scott Pio is, you know, a victor for sure.
You know, I'm so glad that it was resolved positively in the kind of response that he got from former President Donald Trump. But this is a great example of how the people who work for Trump aren't always representing his best interests. And sometimes, quite often, actually, he doesn't know about it. And I do know that he is aware that this is happening. And it seems like in the last couple of weeks, we've seen a little bit of a shift. He's a little more focused on what's happening in the different states because he has found out that they haven't been doing necessarily what they were supposed to be doing. We saw the personnel changes, adding Corey Lewandowski to the campaign team, which has helped some, but there is still more change that is necessary. But look, when he knows, you do kind of get a little more of the Donald Trump on The Apprentice. And we hope that if he takes the Oval Office again, we see more of the apprentice Donald Trump than we saw in the first administration. And he himself has sort of hinted at that recently. In fact, he specifically referenced his role in The Apprentice and said, you know, there will be more of that. And he's supposedly adding RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard to the transition team. So I think that's a good thing because it'll shake up some of this cabal that the establishment, the not America First establishment has had on the hiring process and on personnel, which is very key. I'm so glad this happened, Stacey Langton, and thank you for bringing this to our attention. And if people do want to get this great shirt and support the Republican Party in Loudoun County, how do they do so? Because it's really cute.
So you can go to the Loudoun County GOP website, which I believe is loudoungop.org. And, you know, it's a beautiful replaced, which is on winning this November for president and winning for Senate with Hung Kao, our candidate, and winning for Congress with candidate Mike Clancy in District 10 and candidate Mike Van Meter in District 11. And this should have never, you know, become news in the Washington Post. Like, if they were unhappy with anything Scott was doing as chairman, they should have done it behind closed doors. But because they were selfish and they wanted to try to keep their hammerlock of control on the committee, they made it public and it boomeranged on them. It blew up in their faces in a spectacular fashion. And now we have the focus back where it should be. And, you know, Scott Pio is, he's a friend of Donald Trump, and President Trump is going to win, I think, in November here in Virginia.
He certainly needs more of those kind of people for him. Donald Trump does in Northern Virginia, which is the area that you're in. And the Washington Post is the preferred outlet of RINOs to run to. So if you know you see it in the Washington Post, it probably, and it's a story like this, is because the RINOs are using them to try to sway people their way. Thank you so much, Stacey Langton. If you want to find out more about what Stacey does, of course, you can go to mamagrizzly.org, which you see at the bottom of the screen, and I suggest you do so. So glad to see you again, my friend.
Good to see you too, Emerald.
Mike Lindell, post-DNC, Mustache-less Mike is running the best sales ever at MyPillow.com. Go to MyPillow, use the promo code TRUTH to get these fantastic products at the best price ever, or call the number you see at the bottom of your screen, 800-944-5396, 800-944-5396, and be sure to tell them you want to use the promo code TRUTH.